Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. Now, there is nothing overly exciting going on in MMA news. This video was recommended to me on my homepage yesterday, so I figured why not? It's a fun topic, and also I kind of want to know your guys' opinion on the subject. Before we get into it, however, okay, this is regarding Sean Strickland and the Tate brothers and the things that they have said about one another, the response to what Sean Strickland has said about Andrew Tate. I will give a few prefaces for any Tate fans that are getting upset already, okay? I will not be criticizing them for any of the charges that have been laid towards them or anything like that, because I don't believe in trial by media or guilty until proven innocent. I believe it's innocent until proven guilty, and I also don't think that it is wise to have a strong opinion, or at the very least give a strong stance publicly regarding something that we're going to find more out about in the near future. Do you know what I mean? Like, for just a comparison, there were a lot of people who looked like absolute mongoloids as soon as the Kyle Rittenhouse trial started, okay? There were those of us who were not blinded by politics that saw the video for what it was the second that it was available to us on the internet and realized this looks like self-defense for the most part. Do you know what I mean? But then there was the mainstream media and the people that watched them who essentially just prosecuted this kid before trial even started. He was made out to be a complete and total murderer. His, dragged through the mud by the mainstream media. And then once the trial started, they all looked like idiots, and they kind of had to walk back everything that they had said, at least the ones that aren't completely shameless. Okay, now, as I said, I just don't think it's wise. I'm not going to go and jump to somebody's defense or jump to prosecute somebody that, one, I don't know, okay? So you may have watched them for a very long time, but that's a parasocial relation. I don't know them. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not going to jump to their defense or to prosecute them. I'm kind of indifferent until I see all of the evidence right in front of my face, which is what trial is for, okay? Now, with that being said, I will be criticizing, at the very least, Tristan Tate's response to Sean Strickland, because I found it to be pretty stupid. And I'm not saying that they're stupid, because I do believe that both of them would have pretty high IQs if they took a test, okay? They're clearly very smart. Also, I'll be slightly critical of like how they made their money, but only because it's relevant to what Sean Strickland talked about and what they're responding to. And I do understand that in Islam, or at least from my understanding, that once you convert, your past wrongdoings are forgiven or forgotten, right? But I'm not Muslim, so I don't have to follow by those same rules. But I don't have a weak stomach. I'm not going to be crying about the shit that they did, because I don't really care, dude, okay? And I'll get to that in a second. And I'm not talking about the charges. Again, I'm talking about the webcam website, okay? Essentially, we're forgetting about the charges for this very moment, okay? So, just a summary. I will play the clip for you, but
so Andrew Tate is a con artist. Did you ever watch that interview? You ever watch that interview where
Let's talk about this. Yeah.
You ever watch that interview where he goes on in detail about how he pretended to be a cam girl and used to rob people's savings?
That was probably on ours.
Yeah, I think that might have been on
Maybe.
yours. Yeah,
He was saying he had the girls do the web.
I'm taking over. So what I did is I unplugged their keyboards and plugged a new one in from me behind the screen. So the chicks would sit there and hit a keyboard that wasn't plugged in. And me and my brother, and eventually some staff I trained, would do all the talking. The girls were just famoosers, just laughing and doing this, their titties out. And they were talking to fucking ice cold hustlers. We were taking their money, all of it.
Sean Strickland, I'll just summarize, was asked about Andrew Tate, and this was on the Full Send podcast. Now, he's been very critical about them on a number of occasions, including his own podcast, if I'm not mistaken, but he was asked about him, and he gave a very strong response and answer where he said that they're, essentially pieces of shit who have no remorse for what they did. They stole men's savings and they bragged about it. They were the ones typing, pretending to be the women, and they, show no remorse for taking all of these men's savings. And then just to also summarize Tristan's response briefly,
the other day.
Andrew Tate is a con artist. He pretended to be a cam girl and used to rob people's savings. There's so many better male role models to have. Don't be like him.
What? Even when I was running my webcam studio,
I would do podcasts and advise young men never to partake in these activities. You're a fucking hypocrite. To sit there and say that I should have some remorse for the addict or some control over what the addict does is embarrassing, because he is yet to turn the mirror on himself. He is providing entertainment for these millions of people around the world watching him. You think people don't bet? The fact that there's so much gambling involved is why you get paid in the first place. You want to be a critic of my brother? Okay, then you say, I will fight for money at a much reduced fee as long as nobody in the world can gamble on my fights. That way I've protected everybody. Every time you fight, somebody has lost everything he had. Don't, when you're in the entertainment business, that bankrupts families because of their lack of self-discipline, lecture me, little man.
Also, though, Sean Strickland, a lot of what he doesn't like about them is the materialism and that they value a man based on how much money he can make and how many women he can have and things like this. I think that Sean Strickland has slightly more traditional views in that sense. I don't think that he wants a harem of women. I think that he wants one solid wife to mother his children that he'll be there for and provide for and things like that. And also, he is the least materialistic champion of all fucking time. The guy went and bought a $500 trailer and a 6-foot dinghy for fucking lobster season with his earnings, which were a ton, okay, after becoming the champion, which I thought was awesome and hilarious at the same time. To kind of summarize Tristan's response was that Sean Strickland is a hypocrite because there's a lot of gambling that goes on in fighting, and if Sean Strickland really wants to be a good person, what he should do is say that he'll fight for less money as long as nobody can bet on his fights. Now, that's kind of strange coming from dudes that own casinos, but it is what it is. I'll get to that in a second. Something that Tristan said that I don't necessarily agree with, but I can understand the concept of, is like, why should I have remorse for the addict? Now, it's one thing to not show remorse, because you can feel bad for something while not actively bleeding your heart out every time it gets brought up, because at a certain point, what are you supposed to fucking wallow in your own wrongdoings for the rest of your life and get upset about it every single time it gets brought up? Or have you worked through that, and when it does get brought up, you can say, yeah, look, it was fucking shitty. It's another thing to be like laughing about it and fucking making fun of the people that you did. There's a bit of a difference there. But as I said, I don't have a weak stomach towards this shit. I'm not going to cry over it. I think that grown men have agency on their own fucking lives. And if you're going to send $100,000 to a webcam girl, well then fuck you, dude. Okay? Because that's stupid. Okay? But either way, in my opinion, this argument was dog shit, dude, okay? Absolute fucking dog shit. Now, first of all, he says that the reason Sean Strickland gets paid what he gets paid is because of gambling, which I think may be a part of it, but I don't think it's necessarily a large part of it. Now, the UFC has a pretty strong pay-per-view model, okay? ESPN pays them for 500,000 pay-per-views every single event, regardless of how it sells. That's over $30 million, okay? That's not even taking into consideration ticket sales, merchandise sales, fucking any of the other sponsors that they have that aren't gambling related. Like, there are a ton of other avenues that the UFC has to make money. And yes, DraftKings is probably their biggest sponsor in terms of how much money they pay them, but it's not the sole reason these guys get paid what they get paid. Do you know what I mean? With this, we're not talking about 1980s fucking boxing here, okay? Anyways, not just that, okay? This is not even fucking close to a direct comparison, okay? You owning a casino and then comparing you owning a casino to you also owning a webcam business would be a direct comparison. Sean Strickland does not own a gambling fucking website. I don't even think he pushes gambling. I don't even think he has a gambling sponsor. He might be. I might be misinformed. But even if he fucking did, I don't think that it's comparable. What you could compare that to is James Krause, okay? James Krause having a Discord and a podcast solely centered around betting and their picks, and then having people pay for those picks on his Discord. So encouraging people to fight, not only that, or to gamble, pardon me, not only that, having people pay them to be able to gamble with their picks, and not only that, fixing the fucking fight, okay? This is comparable because they created a problem with the solution attached to it. So we're going to tell everybody to bet this way, and then we're going to throw the fucking fight. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the Tate brothers, and I'm not fucking getting upset about this shit, I'm not running my mouth or whatever, dude. They created a problem in a sense where they had this webcam business. They're talking to a bunch of lonely men. So maybe they didn't create the lonely men, but at the very least, they contributed to it. They maybe even made it worse because a lot of these guys probably ended up realizing, oh, I got fucking scammed. Okay, I'm a loser. And then they created the antidote to that. Okay, this is a great business model, by the way, but I think that a lot of people would feel like shit by doing it. Create the poison and then create the antidote. We, at the very least, contribute to a bunch of lonely men, and then we create our new image, which is men's self-help, and we want to talk to all these lonely men and help uplift their lives and help them do better and things like this. It's honestly, obviously not to the same extent. I'm not saying that they're responsible for millions of deaths, but like when you get a pharmaceutical company that creates a drug like OxyContin, where they tell people that it's completely safe, non-addictive, and it's actually very, very useful in pain management, and then people realize that they were fucking lied to, okay? Because you get a bunch of addicts, a bunch of overdoses and shit like this, and then they go, oh, you know what, dude? We created this thing called methadone or fucking Suboxone. Take this, it'll help you kick it. Although you'll be on that shit for fucking God knows how long. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, one is way worse than the other, but it's just a comparison that I thought was apt. Now, I can't understand how he thought this was a good response, because oftentimes these guys do have very clever responses, even if they're not necessarily a good argument or correct. They are very well spoken, and as I said, even if it's not correct sometimes, they're very clever. And so it would take somebody who was also very clever to decipher what they said and like find the flaws in it. And I don't think most people are that clever. Okay, so it is what it is. A lot of people are also blinded by charm and things like this. I just don't understand the comparison even a little bit. Okay, but you know, it is what it is. As I said, I understand the concept of not having remorse, but I don't really understand being like gleeful about it. That's to me a little bit weird. And you know, you can understand that it's essentially like when a drug dealer says, you know, well, if they didn't get it from me, they would have got it from somebody else. And look, dude, I've done shit in my life that I'm not proud of. When I was a teenager, I stopped when I was 17, but it is what it is. I'm not going to go into detail on that now, maybe another time, but you know, as a grown man with your own set of morals and your own, you know, agency, you should know that at the very least, you're not being a good person when you're doing shit like this, when you're not, you know, kind of scamming people, or men for that matter, the same men that you talk to now, out of their life savings, pretending to be some webcam chick that you've also hired that's in the other room, okay? There's just a massive fucking difference here. Sean Strickland is he's a prize fighter, yes. And here's the other difference too, dude. Sean Strickland never says that men should listen to him, that he's the role model they should follow. He never says this shit. Something he also says, because his ego is fucking gone, especially compared to guys like these, is that he's a whore. I'm a fucking whore, you guys. I get paid to take my clothes off and go fucking fight a man. He says this all the time. He takes the piss out of himself all the fucking time. He does not take himself that seriously. He's not here saying, listen to me, look what I've done, look at all this shit. As a matter of fact, he says, if I had a kid, I would try to steer him away from fighting, because it's not good for you, dude. You get brain damage, do you know what I mean? Like, a la Tito Ortiz. I don't understand the comparison, and I think that it's fucking stupid. Now, if any of you disagree, please let me know in the comments below. Tell me how you think that was a good response, even a little bit, because it's just not, in my opinion, and Sean Strickland is not directly responsible, or even indirectly responsible, for any gambling that takes place on his fights, and fucking, he's just not, dude. You can compare James Krause to it. You cannot compare Sean Strickland to it, or any fucking fighter for that matter. Now, Something else at the end of this video that he said that I found was pretty hysterical was he called Sean Strickland little man. Now there's a few ways that you could interpret that. Okay, he could be referring to like little man as you don't have a lot of value in the world, or like you're a nobody or whatever, or he's literally like you fucking little bitch, basically, because Sean Strickland also said on a different occasion that they wouldn't even look me in the fucking eye if they were here right now. Now, I do think that they would look him in the eye. I just don't think that they would win a fight. And if you think otherwise, well, I'm going to try and convince you why they wouldn't. But I think that many actual hardcore MMA fans would understand that Sean Strickland would most likely dog walk them, okay? Now, Andrew Tate, as Tristan himself has said on a number of occasions, is the better kickboxer, okay? Andrew Tate won world championships, whereas Tristan Tate won UK championships. Like, he won a regional versus a world, or, you know, a national versus a world, or whatever, dude, okay? Andrew Tate's titles come from ISKA, which is a legitimate sanctioning body, okay, but regarded by many people as a, you know, B-tier type belt, okay? And I'm not saying this to be shitty, because the fact that they were professional fighters, or that they were, already puts them in a league of their own, right? They're like 1% of men, okay? So I'm not being shitty there. Any professional fighter deserves some level of recognition for what they did, okay? I mean, except maybe fucking Mike Jackson. But it's a B tier. It's not a league, it's a sanctioning body, but the promotions that they sanction, the belt is essentially a B tier. It's not Glory, okay? It's not a Glory world title in kickboxing. It's just fucking not, okay? Out of 31 of Andrew Tate's opponents, because I'm talking about Andrew because he's the better kickboxer. I know that Tristan Tate's the one that we're talking about, and he's actually a weight class above. Andrew Tate had 31 kickboxing opponents listed on his Wikipedia page. 5 of those opponents are well known enough to have their own Wikipedia pages. 2 of those opponents competed in Glory, okay? And one of them actually lost to Alex Pereira when Alex Pereira was only 2 years into his kickboxing career. And if we compare that, and I know that, you know, whether or not somebody has a Wikipedia page isn't necessarily the best indicator of their skill level, but it kind of is in this sense, because all of the world's best kickboxers have a Wikipedia page, okay? Alex Pereira had 33 opponents listed on his Wikipedia page. They admit that it's incomplete. 23 of them have their own Wikipedia pages. 23 of his opponents. Now, to be fair, some of them are doubles, but that kind of proves my point anyways. Like, he's fighting the elite of the elite, and in kickboxing, rematches and trilogies happen way more often than they do in MMA, because it actually is pretty ranking based, right? If you're number 1 and you lose to the champion, but then you win another, like, contender fight, you're still the number 1 contender, and you're going to get the next title shot, because they're not trying to sell pay-per-views necessarily. Also, Alex Pereira and Andrew Tate fought at the same weight class, okay? Now, I'm going to ask all of you, to be honest, who do you think wins that fight, okay? And Andrew Tate also, by the way, has, I think, 5 more years experience in kickboxing than Alex Pereira does. And I think that if we're all honest with ourselves, we know that Alex Pereira starches him with ease, okay? With fucking ease. And I know that he starched Sean Strickland, but that's not the point. The point is that he's a 185er, and while he was competing in these B league, I'm not trying to be shitty, dude, in these B tier leagues, Alex Pereira is competing at the same time in Glory, fighting the best of the best and shit like that. Like, it's just, I get that he was a world champion. They're not comparable to what we think of. It's the same way when Bellator says we have, you know, the heavyweight world champ. Meanwhile, John Jones is in the UFC. Do you know what I mean? Like, no, you fucking don't. You have the Bellator champ. Get real, dude. Okay. Even a guy like Israel Adesanya, who's also a middleweight, by the way, I think would fucking have his way with Andrew Tate, but it is what it is. All of these guys who I just mentioned, too, it's not like the timing wasn't there, or they just never got matched up. It was that while these guys were fighting in Glory, Andrew Tate was fighting in, like, fucking, you know, whatever, dude. Some tournament. Some random tournament. He fought in one well-named tournament, and it's only because it has the K1 moniker that goes along with it, but it wasn't actually the K1 that we all know. Either way. As I said, we know from both of them that Andrew was the better kickboxer, the more skilled at the very least. Tristan Tate's a little bit bigger, so maybe he could have been talking about that. Maybe he could have just been saying, well, I'm bigger than you, little man, which would be strange considering his brother sitting right next to him was in the same weight class as Sean Strickland, okay? But he's talking about the UFC's middleweight champion, which is mixed martial arts, okay, in a very strong and aggressive tone. So let's talk about MMA for a second, because Andrew and his brother Tristan both had an MMA fight, or actually Andrew had a couple. Tristan had one, which, again, dude, I'm not trying to be fucking shitty, okay? I'm just not. But he tapped to strikes, okay? And I don't really like when guys shit on dudes that tap to strikes, but that is dependent on what kind of strikes. It's situational, okay? So George St. Pierre getting his shit rocked by Matt Serra and then getting ground and pounded fucking horribly in a fight where that was probably going to be stopped very shortly if he hadn't tapped to strikes, okay? Goes on to live another day, fight another day, comes back and fucking dominates in the rematch is very different to what I'm about to show you guys, because Tristan Tate, essentially, it appears as though tapped, to discomfort, okay? He got hit with a few cheeky elbows, and he tapped. He jumped up immediately, showing that he wasn't rocked or concussed, even maybe. Who knows? He wasn't wobbly or anything like that. No cuts, no bruises, no swollen eyes, no hematomas, no real damage. Couple of cheeky elbows. He's on his back. He's not used to being there because he's a kickboxer, and he taps due to strikes. Could you imagine if a guy like Alex Pereira was tapping due to discomfort? We wouldn't see him in the UFC ever, dude. He just had Jan Blachowicz on his back for like 4 fucking minutes in his light heavyweight debut and managed to fight through it, defend, and make it to the next round and go on to win the fight, okay? Like, it's just, I get that they're good fighters because they're professional fighters, but they're nowhere fucking near Sean Strickland. They're just not, dude. They're just not. Sean Strickland would he would fight them one after another in the gym, and he would fuck them both up. He just would, dude. So I'm only bringing that up because I thought it was hilarious that Tristan Tate called him little man at the end of that. The tone that he was speaking to him in, like he's some bitch that Tristan could fuck up. I feel like if they were face to face, or if they got, like, I just don't think that the energy would be the same. As I already said this. I think that they would look him in the eyes, especially if there were cameras around. But I think Sean Strickland would beat them both back to fucking back. And look, dude, I will say this, and I'm not a role model, and I'm not fucking telling you who you should look up to, but I think that if I had to choose who I would look up to, I think I would choose Sean Strickland. I know that people might not like that he's not religious and things like that, but I just think that he has a better overall message, which is what a lot of people that still defend Tate go to, is that, well, I think he's a net good on society because of his overall message. Some of the shit he says may be bad, may be degenerate, and shit like this, but if you look at his overall message, then it's a net positive for society or whatever. I think that Sean Strickland may swear a fuckload, he may say some crazy shit, he may make some absolutely hilarious fucking jokes, but he's a net good for society. And I think that if there's somebody to look up to, it would be somebody who's not basing his worth on materialistic things. Do you know what I mean? He's not constantly he does constantly talk about his car, but the difference is that it's a fucking Hyundai when he could afford probably like some sort of supercar especially after that last fight. Whereas, on the other side, you just hear about the fucking Bugatti over and over again. But either way, man, I hope you guys aren't too upset at this topic. I'm not trying to fucking shit on them. As I said, I think I kept it pretty fair. I didn't go after them for the charges. I don't use the same attacks that the fucking mainstream media uses. I formulated my own opinions, and I don't change them based on what my viewership may or may not think, because I don't do that shit, unlike some MMA YouTubers. And I'm not going to name names, but regardless, like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll see you at the next video. Bye-bye.